Welcome back. Joining us now from the Pakistani capital is political analyst Javed Rana. Javed, welcome to the program. Javed, let's start with the Epstein case. Now, Trump has changed his words, his statements. Now he's saying that the Epstein documents should be released. Then there's also the name of former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan. That's also been revealed in one of those messages by Epstein. Tell us what's going on.
I think the kind of the portrayal which has been given to the latest Epstein file to Imran Khan, that is a bit interesting. Now the internal communication of Jeffrey Epstein is portraying Imran Khan of what he said is a more dangerous than Putin, than the Chinese President Xi, then the Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan, and Imam Khamenei of Iran. Now the bigger question is, all these leaders have been working for the national interest of their own country, and more particularly focusing on President Tayyip Erdogan. What is wrong with that kind of the mindset which finds him and Imran Khan as a dangerous political leader? The reason is that all these leaders, more particularly, I'll be focusing on President Tayyip Erdogan and I'll be focusing on Imran Khan because they were pursuing their national interest. You may recall that in 2020, Imran Khan, the then Prime Minister, and the President Tayyip Erdogan, and then Iranian leadership, along with Qatar, with the Malaysians, they were going to basically build up a parallel organization to the OIC because their focus was to resolve the Kashmir dispute and more particularly the Palestinian dispute with the apartheid Israel. So I think all these leaders who've been pursuing their national interests, who've been raising voice for the Muslim causes, they were the threats to the Zionists. They were the threats to the Zionist and Jewish lobbies inside the United States. Now again, everybody now knows that the Jeffrey Epstein was working for the Mossad, the Israeli intelligence, and that they've been blackmailing all these leaders. They've been getting all kind of the information about the Western leaders, about the Arab leaders, and from elsewhere from the world. Now with the Imran Khan coming into power in 2018, that was a kind of alarm bell because Imran Khan has essentially he may not have projected himself, but the impression that he has created from his different speeches that he is pursuing Muslim causes. But again, that is a bigger threat for the Israel because Israel does not like leader like him to stay in power. Now in Pakistan, many debate that perhaps part of the reason that Imran Khan was removed from power in April 2022 because of the fact that he wanted to pursue Muslim causes. And you may recall that in 2020 when he could not make it to this OIC-like summit in Malaysia because Saudi Arabia had threatened, the MBS threatened him that if he joins that summit, then Pakistan will have to face the consequences in form of expelling at least 4 million Pakistanis from there and the blocking Pakistan's oil import. So in that broader context, I think since now we see that the Arab North, they are in league with, they are hands in glove with the apartheid Israel and the Jewish lobbies, entire this Zionist network. That is why that Zionist lobbies in the United States traditionally find President Tayyip Erdogan, find the former Prime Minister Imran Khan as threat to their agenda to impose hegemonic designs onto the Muslim world.
Javed, we're slowly progressing when it comes to the ceasefire plan, right? And today there is a key vote as well at the United Nations Security Council on Donald Trump's Gaza plan. How important is that vote going to be today?
This is a critically important for Gaza, for the unarmed Palestinians. What is going to be their fate? It is going to be determined probably today or maybe the day after tomorrow. Now the problem is that the US is trying to impose a draft of resolutions which is basically take it or leave it, my way or the highway. The draft resolution says that these Muslim countries, in form of so-called international stabilization force, they would be responsible to disarm Hamas and other resistant groups inside occupied Gaza. That is going to be their job. And there would be so-called peace board. Probably that is going to be headed by Donald Trump. It would oversee all this operation of disarming Hamas and dismantling the hundreds of kilometer long tunnels, something which Israel couldn't do, disarming of Hamas, something which Israel couldn't do for the last 2 years. Not that dirty job under this draft of the resolution is going to be undertaken none other than by the Muslim countries, by the 7-8 Muslim countries. So again, instead of having a kind of a resolution, developing some kind of consensus on a draft resolution whereby these Muslim countries can have a peacekeeping force under the UN mandate, and they can equally treat both Israel's breach of ceasefire agreement and by the resistance group. That is not going to happen. Now, China and Russia and France, they are clearly under threat from the USA that if you veto this resolution, that means there is going to be resumption of the genocide. That is the language of the draft. That these now US is saying that all these veto-yielding countries can prevent the consequences that the Palestinians are going to face. What does it mean? It is a clear threat of the resumption of genocide, which is going to be, like always, backed by the USA. So this is a terrible situation, and this voting of the resolution, which is probably is going to happen within 24 hours, has come at a time when Israel has started now forcibly expelling Palestinians to elsewhere in the world. And we have seen there has been at least 1 to 2 flights from the apartheid Israel. It has facilitated nearly 200 passengers, and one of the flight has gone to the South Africa without pursuing any immigration procedures and the protocols, and that is now being seen as an act of expelling Palestinians by force. So, point is, Israel is not sincere to this so-called peace accord. Israel is not sincere to this ceasefire. We have already seen that hundreds of Palestinians have been killed, and there have been more than 150 attacks by the Israel against the Palestinians. So I think Israel essentially is working on a plan that if Muslim countries do not disarm Hamas, then they are going to basically intensify the resumption of this genocide, number one, and expelling all of the remaining Palestinians from Gaza. They have already created adverse conditions inside occupied Gaza, where it looks like very difficult for the people to survive there under these conditions.
Javed, we were talking about the ceasefire deal right now. The second phase of this ceasefire includes the International Stabilization Force and the disarmament of Hamas. How is Hamas looking at all the latest developments right now?
Well, Hamas has opposed it, and Hamas has now clearly said that they are not going to concede to any Western-imposed plan where they are going to govern over Gaza. I think this is a warning, and this is a clear message from the Palestinians that this is the time that let the Palestinians settle their own problems. Let there be elections. Let there be an interim government. Let there be a kind of a coalition government inside Gaza, which will prepare for general elections, and let the people inside Gaza decide who they want to rule over them. Now, there is a kind of a situation where Western governments, obviously in league with Israel, pursuing Israel's agenda, they don't want any election inside Gaza, or they don't want any election in the occupied West Bank. Reason being is they know that there is a fear that the resistant groups like Hamas, they would emerge as again a government inside these territories. So therefore, I think they have come up with a kind of a so-called peace plan, whereby I think for the next 2 years, maybe for more years, they want a kind of a war, conflict between their Muslim armies and those of these resistance groups. That is their plan, because if these Muslim armies, if they are going to disarm Hamas, obviously there would be conflict, because they have straight away refused that the Hamas would not disarm itself, other resistance groups would not disarm themselves as long as Israel stays inside Gaza, because still much of the territory is under the former control and occupation of Israel.
Javed, talking about these Muslim armies, right? What is the Pakistani stance? You interviewed the Pakistani defense minister last week. What were his comments? What was the body language? What were you thinking when you were speaking to him? Do you think obviously Pakistan has said that it's interested in sending troops to the occupied Gaza Strip, but obviously it's not going to be so easy because like Turkey, Israel does not want Pakistani presence in Gaza.
All that glitter is not gold. So what the defense minister said, I don't think that is the policy. But the bigger picture is that Pakistan's military generals have been calling shots, and the defense minister's opinion and remarks do not matter as much as the policy of the military generals matters, because these are the military generals who've been directly in touch with all these interlocutors, and the Pakistan's Field Marshal, General Asim Munir, who's been calling shots. He had meetings with the Donald Trump, and God knows what kind of assurance that they have already given. But indications are that the Pakistan is very much willing to be part of some kind of stabilization force there. Now we have heard the defense minister that Pakistan would not like to disarm Hamas. But when there is UN Security Council resolutions, I think it will be harder for all these Muslim countries' armies not to disarm Hamas. Yes, Turkey can politically handle this situation if the Turkish troops are there inside Gaza, which Israel is opposing. Now, Pakistan's position has been, frankly speaking, somewhat unclear in the public domain. But so far as the media reports are concerned, they do suggest that the Pakistan military is more than willing to be part of the international stabilization force. Under what terms and conditions, nobody knows. But I can tell you that the people in Pakistan, they don't want Pakistan militaries or any other Muslim countries, any hostile role towards the resistance groups, because they are the ray of hope for the Palestinians. If they disarm themselves without a two-state solution, I think that means that the rest of the territory, like occupied West Bank and the occupied Gaza, those would be also completely taken over by the apartheid Israel. So I think in a broader context, Pakistan's role is important, but at the same time, Israel apparently doesn't feel so much uncomfortable with if Pakistan military send its troops there. So this is something which causes a lingering suspicion that Pakistan might have some kind of underhand deal with the Donald Trump. Unlike Turkey, whose troops deployment is being opposed, because apartheid Israel knows that the Turkish troops would be obviously sympathetic to the Palestinian population, and they would not try to disarm any resistant group.
Political analyst Javed Rana, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode.
The growing tide of anti-Israel sentiments. What you see behind me is just tip of the iceberg of what is happening in the country. More than half of $52 billion black CIA budget is spent on espionage network in Pakistan. How would you handle it?
The US has looked upon Pakistan as an ally at one point and then as an enemy at the same time.
That is going to be the first legalism on the basis of which he is going to be instantly ousted by the Supreme Court of Pakistan.
Joining us live, Javed Rana, who's an expert on politics and geostrategic issues.
In the world politics, which is not being driven by any moral principle, it is being driven by the hard geostrategic realities. In a broader picture, more countries would aspire to have nuclear weapons. The growing tide of anti-Israel sentiments. What you see behind me is just tip of the iceberg of what is happening in the country. More than half of $52 billion black CIA budget is spent on espionage network in Pakistan. How would you handle it?
The US has looked upon Pakistan as an ally at one point and then as an enemy at the same time.
That is going to be the first legal reason on the basis of which he is going to be instantly ousted by the Supreme Court of Pakistan.
Joining us live, Javed Rana, who's an expert on politics and geostrategic issues.
In the world politics, which is not being driven by any moral principle, it is being driven by the hard geostrategic realities. In a broader picture, more countries would aspire to have nuclear weapons.